Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. It is, in my opinion, the best European football content on YouTube, but I am slightly biased. And joining me today, we've got Henry Hill, fresh from an Irish jig this week that you put on Instagram. What was going down there, Henry? Great moves.
Yeah, I think that was from 2018. That's from my old job. I used to be like a building manager, and that was just me entertaining the inhabitants. I was inhabitants. But yeah, that was a bit of an embarrassing thing. But I'm in a good mood today. Football Twitter told me that it's 11 years today since Fulham beat Juventus.
Massive.
In that fateful game at Craven Cottage. So that's good. I've been watching that like Thiago, Mount and Jorginho celebration on repeat. I think that just looks so fun. And then also, I think I saw you like it as well, Dougie. That Super Six, the bloke who's missed out on £250,000
yes,
from that Emerson goal, which that looks absolutely, to be fair, they did that pretty well. That looked absolutely devastating.
Yeah, that really did. Poor guy. But yeah, I was watching that Fulham highlights package that you liked as well. That Dempsey chip against Juventus. What a goal. McCubs, how are you on this Thursday morning?
Yeah, not too bad, Diggs. Obviously, watched the UCL last night. We did UCL review, so go and check that out from yesterday if you haven't already. And yeah, watched Lazio Bayern for the majority of it. So yeah, not feeling the most inspired after that. But yeah, otherwise pretty good.
Good man. Yeah, I'm afraid you slightly drew the short straw on that one. But anyway, let's get into today's show because we've got a bumper show lined up for you today. Our question comes in from Des McCoot, and it's: is Eden Hazard the worst signing of all time? And we thought rather than round up all terrible signings, go down the classic names, the Andy Carrolls to Liverpool, etc., we want to just solely focus on the 8 players that have been bought for over £100 million, which have all come since 2017. They are as follows: Neymar, Kylian Mbappe, Coutinho, Dembele, João Felix, Griezmann, Cristiano Ronaldo and Hazard. And today we want to go through who has been the most and least successful out of all of them. And McCubs, we are kicking off with Eden Hazard. He seems like the obvious place to start because another injury now, and it is just getting quite sad.
Yeah, I mean, he made a comeback, didn't he, on the weekend after 7 games out in Real's 2-1 win over Elche. And yeah, played the final 15 minutes, but he's now been sidelined for more games. He's expected to be out for at least 4 more games after picking up another issue in that match. Obviously, missed the Atalanta game as well by extension. And yeah, I mean, Zinedine Zidane seems to be kind of continually perplexed by Hazard's injury problems. After this latest setback, he said that it's something new. I can't really give more of an explanation. He said, yeah, he just can't explain it at all. I think he also, spoke about kind of his own confusion as to why kind of Hazard's injury record was so pristine pretty much up until he joined Real Madrid. And maybe that's something to do with it, like he's obviously, has he 30 now? Did he turn 30 in January, I think?
Yeah.
Was playing, week in, week out for a solid, 10, 11 years, right? Like he was a key player for Lille before he joined Chelsea, and then for Chelsea he was pretty much ever present. So maybe that has something to do with it. Obviously he turned up at Real Madrid pretty unfit as well, didn't he, in 2019? And yeah, it's now been nearly 2 years since he signed for £103.5 million from Chelsea. He had 1 year remaining on his deal at that point, so the idea that Real Madrid had to pay that much doesn't really wash, does it? I think they could have definitely negotiated a lower fee. And he's had 11 separate injury issues since. He's missed 50 games so far. That means he's only made 36 appearances for the club to date. And obviously, not all of those would have been starts as well. A lot of them would have been just, cameos off the bench while he was coming back from injury and recovering. Only 25 in La Liga, 20 of those were starts. For a player that missed 9 games with injury across his final 3 years in West London, it's pretty shocking, isn't it? And when he has been on the pitch, we've only seen his brilliance in very small pockets. He's only had 3 goals and 4 assists in 34 League and Champions League games for the club. Even when he's on the pitch, his kind of conversion rate and his productivity in general has taken a big dip. He was obviously brought in as the replacement for Ronaldo as well, which just makes it all the more disappointing. came in for similar money that they brought in for Ronaldo from Juventus. And obviously, Ronaldo's been pretty essential to Juve in the last 2 years. He scored 95 goals, he's got 22 assists in 122 games, fired them to 2 Serie A titles. Okay, they haven't got the coveted Champions League that they were hoping when they signed him. But equally, he's definitely not been a disaster, has he? If anything, they've become perhaps a little too over-reliant on him, but that's through no fault of his own. So all in all, this has just been a really, really poor investment by Real. They should have got him for cheaper. Probably wasn't the right guy in terms of his age profile anyway, to replace what Ronaldo had brought to the club for so many years. He hasn't started more than 5 games in a row for Real, or even featured in more than 5 games in a row for the club since signing back in 2019. He's also on over £400,000 a week, according to most reports. He's the second highest earner in the squad behind Gareth Bale, who's obviously being paid £15 million this season to play for Spurs. So yeah, there's a number of things, in the Real wage structure, which need to be sorted out. And it just seems weird that kind of in the last 2 years, when they really changed course in terms of their recruitment strategy, in terms of going for younger players, which is yet to really bear the fruit that I think Florentino Perez was hoping it would. The one Galactico signing they have made is arguably the worst Galactico signing they've ever made in their history. So there's not really much more to say on it, really, is there? It's just just pretty sad to see such an amazing player who really kind of was one of the defining forwards of the last 10 years. Get his dream move and then everything collapse around him.
Yeah, it is really sad, to be honest. I mean, the level he got to at Chelsea almost consistently. There was a couple of down years when he wasn't quite fit, particularly that final year under Mourinho as well, but generally very, very consistent, and consistently one of the best players in the Premier League, I think pretty much from the day he arrived, consistently in that sort of top 2, top 3 bracket. We've talked about it before, very unprofessional to turn up so unfit at Real Madrid, but you can only really feel sorry for him at this stage. Like, it has gone on to, he arrived in July 2019, was it? And we're now in March 2021, and he still hasn't been able to get a run of games for more than 5, as McCubs said. So it's pretty damning, really, and it leaves Real Madrid in a very difficult situation, because obviously they've got a massive loan to pay back on redeveloping the Bernabeu, which they need to start paying back in the next year. And they've got very few sort of sellable assets, and some of their best players that want to leave are that old guard that have kept them going so long in the last few years, with Sergio Ramos and Rafael Varane not signing new deals. And I don't think Spurs are going to take up that option to sign Gareth Bale either on his wages. So I don't really know where Real Madrid go from here in terms of Hazard, but I just hope he can get back onto the pitch and try and re-establish himself as a truly world-class forward, because at the moment it doesn't even look like he's going to go to the Euros, quite frankly. But anyway, let's move on from Hazard. Let's park Hazard. Let's cross the El Clasico divide to Barcelona, Henry, because Philippe Coutinho went for a lot more money than Hazard, and it hasn't really worked out well either.
Yeah, I think we should just start by saying it's never the player's fault if a club decides to spend stupid money on them. Do you know what I mean? It's that's the same for Coutinho, certainly the same for Hazard. Obviously, there's an onus on being fit and keeping yourself in shape. You've got that, if they've invested that money in you, you should act like it to an extent. But it's never like a player's fault when a club decides to do this. And the thing about Coutinho is Barcelona paid £142 million for him, with 105 million up front in January 2018. He signed a 5.5-year deal with a release clause of £335 million. And that, when you look at his numbers, Coutinho was always a good player, but that does feel extreme, doesn't it? I mean, if you consider, for Liverpool, they only signed him for £8.5 million from Inter Milan. I remember thinking at the time that was a brilliant transfer back in January 2013. And, he got 54 goals and 45 assists in 201 games. That's just under 0.5 goals contributions per game. So that is pretty impressive. But he didn't even win a trophy in that time. He did contribute 12 goals as Liverpool finished second in 2013-14 and helped them to Europa League and League Cup final 2 years later. But that's still a lot of money for Philippe Coutinho, and I don't know quite what they're expecting to be, like a world-class creator at Barcelona, someone to provide for Lionel Messi. It's always difficult when you go and join, as we've seen with other players, they've struggled to kind of live next to him in a certain way because he has such an aura about him in that regard. And if we look at like his early contribution at Barcelona, he contributed 13 goals and 7 assists in his first 52 league games for the club between January 2018 and May 2019, which is pretty decent. It's interesting. I was thinking about Timo Werner. I think you guys said it yesterday. I think he's got 17 goal involvements this year in his first season for Chelsea, and people have been going, "Oh, is that good enough? Is that good enough for what they're expecting?" If you consider that was a third of the price structure wise of what Coutinho was bought for by Barcelona. It's just like an interesting comparison to see like where do you define success in certain regards. Obviously it looked like he lost his confidence and they moved him on. He went to Bayern Munich and I actually thought he played pretty well there. He scored 11 and assisted 9 in 34 league and UCL games as Bayern obviously won that treble. I think it was unfortunate for him because Thomas Müller just became that kind of elite creator, didn't he, last season, where no one could really stop him. I think it was over 20 assists or something ridiculous like that. It became particularly hard for Coutinho to find a place in the team. But there were some like really notable performances, wasn't there? Scored 3 and assisted 2 in a 5-1 drumming of Werder Bremen. And let's not forget, he came off the bench to score twice against Barcelona in that 8-2 battering. Just 15 minutes, actually. And that really, you did feel like that was just the cherry on the top for this transfer as a whole in terms of what a kind of mishap it was. And if we move on to this season, I was really excited. I thought you could like park the transfer aside and just give him a chance to almost reboot at Barcelona this season. If you remember in pre-season, Koeman was playing him. It did look like he was going to have his moment to shine there. But, and he featured in 12 of Barca's first 15 La Liga games. 2 goals, 2 assists. But then December 29th, he injured his knee 24 minutes into their game against Eibar. And he's missed their last 21 games. If you've been wondering where Philippe Coutinho is, he's not been nowhere to be seen Barcelona in recent months. Obviously, in that time, Ousmane Dembele and Griezmann have become pretty effective together. Trincao has kind of emerged on the scene. Pedri, Ansu Fati, when he comes back, will be ahead of Coutinho in the pecking order there. So it's difficult to see where he's going to fit in. And it is a shame, really, because when he was featuring, he was playing pretty well, wasn't he? 0.67 expected goals and assists per 90 across 12 La Liga games, only topped by his 0.84 whilst at Bayern last year. I remember all of his numbers for Bayern creatively were better than anyone at Barcelona, bar Messi. So it did look like, if you consider they went in and made that Artur swap deal with Pjanic looking for more creativity, it did look like they should have just focused on Coutinho. This injury hasn't paid off. But, I mean, interestingly, I've read, so he's expected to return around this month, actually, Coutinho. But I did some research beforehand, and apparently if he plays 7 more games, Barcelona have to pay £4.5 million to Liverpool as like an interference fee. And apparently they really don't want to do that.
At the moment, that's probably quite a lot for them.
That is a huge fee. I mean, don't take my word literally for that, but I've read that on a lot of various channels. There's a rumour there that so if you see him play 6 times for the rest of the season, there might be a reason why. But yeah, I mean, if we look at their finances as well, 1.2 billion euros of debt. Coutinho's paid £383,000 per week. Turning 29 in June. Once again, not his fault at all that they decided to hand him that contract. And I think in my opinion, they probably could have done more. I don't think his early form justified like the panic. What was it, 18 months he was there before they moved him on? I don't think it justified the panic which kind of struck the club, and I think they could have maybe given him more time to try and adapt. But yeah, it's a really difficult one, and I do hope that someone does look at what he achieved at Bayern and does see that potential. I can't see them getting. I had a look on transfer marks. His current value is around 50 million euros. I can't see anyone agreeing to pay that right now. But around the 30, 35 million, if they could get any kind of money for him like that, I do hope there is a club that can take him on, because there is like an amazing player in there. Certainly compared to Hazard, I think that he's still got a bit more to give. I think Hazard potentially looks just a bit shot, really, in terms of his body. But Coutinho, yeah, it's just an unbelievable sum of money, which has just not worked out. And I don't know how you can really recover from that from a Barcelona perspective.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a crazy sum. But you're talking about selling him for 30 million euros there, or 30 million pounds, which is a kind of what I agree. I think he's between 30 and 50 right now. But that's still a 90 to 110 million pound loss on a player who did his best work against your club, probably playing for Bayern Munich and helped them win a treble. Like, it's pretty damning stuff. So it's difficult for Coutinho. I think he's, as you say, so 6th or 7th choice in the pecking order down there, just coming back from a major knee injury. What does his future hold? I'm not quite sure. But We do have some other candidates we need to mention. I mean, Hazard and Coutinho are the most notable ones, but there's some other shouts that probably deserve a bit of discussion here as well. I mean, Uzman Dembele, he was signed by Barcelona in August 2017 from Dortmund. He has been so unlucky with injury. He's missed 80 games across his first 3 seasons, but this year he's actually stayed much fitter. He's only missed 5 games, and he's seeing much better results too. He's got 8 goals and 4 assists in 34 games in all competitions, and still so young, only 23. He's got plenty of time. I'm pretty optimistic about Ousmane Dembele right now. I feel like, yes, his finishing in that game against PSG was really poor, but his link-up play has been so much better this year. He seems like he's getting along with his teammates better. He seems fitter. He seems to be able to last longer in games as well. And he just generally looks like a much better player. He's now averaging 2.6 shots, 2 key passes, and 3.2 dribbles per 90. 0.48 expected goals and assists per 90, which is a very solid tally. Like, if I was seeing that at a player at an emerging club who didn't have the name Ousmane Dembele, who hadn't established himself in the French squad, who hadn't signed for Barcelona for over £100 million, I'd be like, this is a player you really need to start looking at. So, fair play. All you can do is give Ousmane Dembele massive respect from coming back from that 3 years of injury hell. Griezmann as well in that side as well. They obviously paid €120 million to activate his release clause. Only 15 goals and 4 assists in his first season. But similar to João Felix, who we'll get onto in a little bit, has stepped up a lot this campaign. 13 goals and 11 assists in 39 games. Did particularly well when Messi was suspended for a couple of games as well. And has scored some phenomenal goals. That great volley against Osasuna, that goal against Huesca the other day as well. You'd probably look for more from him in the bigger games. Hasn't really done it in a massive tie just yet, but really promising stuff from Griezmann as well. Not the player I would have spent that money on, but it's done now, and I don't think he's done too badly. And then finally, João Felix, who still doesn't look like he was worth that amount of money, to be honest. I think he was definitely overpriced. He looks like a phenomenal player, great technician. Watching him last night against Chelsea, he looked like their most threatening player by a distance, but still doesn't have the output just yet to deserve that fee, and I don't know whether he ever will at Atletico Madrid in that Simeone system as well. Obviously, it cost £50 million more than Atletico Madrid's previous record signing. Only got 9 goals and 3 assists in his first season. He's got 10 goals and 5 assists in 32 games this season, but he's still only been given 13 La Liga starts, and it feels like Simeone is kind of battling with how best to integrate him, and his finishing alongside Correa this time really hasn't been good enough. So when Luis Suarez stopped hitting like 80% of his shots in, it's really come back to bite Atleti in the last 8 games, and they've dropped points in 5 of them, I believe. So troubling times for João Felix. I think he will come good, but still massive outlay. But guys, before we move on to the best £100 million signings, I mean, obviously, is Hazard definitely the worst McCubs, or do you think any of these deserve an inclusion up there with him?
I think based on what's happened so far, it's hard to look past Hazard. Like, I think Coutinho, obviously cost actually a fairly significant amount more than him. But at least with Coutinho, like you did see like his brilliance quite a bit actually in spells in that first season, especially at Barca, or in those first 18 months at Barca. Remember him scoring a fantastic goal in the Champions League quarterfinals in 2019. So just based on that alone, I think Hazard, edges him as the worst. And then of the other 3, I'd say maybe Griezmann's probably 3rd for me on that list as well, just because he's not going to get any better, whereas the Dembele and Felix are almost certainly going to get better. I'd say Felix is probably the best of the bunch, just because it's we don't really know what his potential is yet.
Yeah, he does look incredibly exciting. Just not quite that output, as I mentioned, but I don't mean to call him out too much. Still so young. Henry, in terms of the best £100 million signings, probably in the reckoning we've got Neymar, Mbappe and Ronaldo. Which of those 3 do you think takes the biscuit?
Oof. I mean, I think Ronaldo, considering he's had 2 massive transfers, he's delivered on both of those occasions. I actually think the original time that Madrid broke the world record to sign him, that has just proven to be a masterclass. But out of the 3, probably Mbappe. Just, you feel like there is certainly a resale value there. People are always going to want him, and he's been amazing. 116 goals, 59 assists in 158 games. That is just mental, isn't it? 1.1 goal contributions per game. Only 22 years old. Neymar as well, I think, to be fair, if you're going to spend 222 million on a player, it's got to kind of work out. And other than the fact that he's been injured quite a lot, we haven't been able to see him consistently. I think he has. I'm considering all that, the drama that's kind of come with that transfer as well. I actually think he's been amazing for them too. 7 trophies, that Champions League final, 83 goals, 47 assists. There's a chance. I believe that he probably will win the Champions League with PSG at some point if they can just continue on their kind of upwards trajectory, which would top off that project. And it does just, that Neymar signing does just define the PSG of now, and I think fair play to PSG. They went big on 2 players, and it looks like they've got it right on both occasions. Which, when we look at Barcelona, which is the common theme here, they certainly didn't.
Yeah, no, Barcelona certainly had a bit more of a mare. I think, I'm kind of with you. I think Mbappe probably takes top spot just because of that sell-on value. It looks like they'll maybe be able to recoup all their money. Neymar was a ridiculous fee, but as you say, just incredibly consistent when he's been on the pitch. And I think whenever he's on the pitch, is comfortably in the best discussion for best players in the world, which is all you can do really for if you're Neymar. You know, he didn't decide that fee as we talked about at the beginning. But guys, we want to hear from you. Who are your worst £100 million plus signings, and which ones are your best? Let us know in the comments down below, and let's move on to our big match preview. So this weekend for our big match preview, we could have talked about Barcelona versus Real Sociedad or Lyon versus PSG, but we've talked about La Liga and Liga for the last 2 weeks. So instead, we are heading over to Italy because this Sunday night at 7:45pm, 6th place Roma host 5th place Napoli in a huge game for their continental ambitions. Henry, we're kicking off with Roma. Weird season for them.
You're completely right. Every time Roma look like they're getting on a bit of run of form, it kind of falls off a little bit, and it's kind of really topsy-turvy. It really starts. They had 1 defeat in their first 8 games, and that was for fielding Amadou Diawara, who hadn't even been registered. Bit of a rookie mistake there. So they lost 3-0 to Hellas Verona. That left them in 3rd. But then got better again. They stayed in the top 4 until the 21st of February. But then 2 defeats in their last 4 games against AC Milan and Parma, seeing them fall to 6th, albeit only 2 points behind 4th place Atalanta. It just seems, I think we talked about it a few weeks ago, those teams competing for the 4th spot in the Champions League, they just all seem to be sort of dropping off at inconvenient moments there. And for Roma, I mean, their kind of big issue really is in their big games. They failed to beat a side above them in the table this season. They lost 4-0 to Napoli in the previous meeting between the two, 4-1 to Atalanta, 3-0 to Lazio, and then 2-1 to Milan as well. So they haven't really, other than that Milan result, they haven't really come close in any of those games, have they? Luckily, only their defeat to AC Milan came at the Stadio Olimpico, so that's something to bear in mind. They're actually 2nd for points gained at home with 33 from 14 games. That's just 1 point behind Inter Milan. But they rank 9th for away points with 5 wins and 6 defeats from 13 games. So really struggling on the roads. If we look at their team, they've been once again just like they're reliant on that kind of old core that runs through the side, aren't they? Mkhitaryan, 9 goals, 8 assists, most goal involvements since he contributed 26 in his final year at Dortmund. He's also a bit of a doubt for this game as well. But like Edin Dzeko as well, there were rumours that he'd actually fallen out with Paulo Fonseca, but it looks like he's back in the side there. And they've been relying on Boya Mayoral as well. He's proved a really nifty 2-year loan deal from Real Madrid actually, and also Lorenzo Pellegrini with 10. But their star man this year has had to be Jordan Veretout. He's been excellent in midfield. 10 goals, 2 assists in 24 league games. That does include 5 penalties. But he also misses this game as well. Some Aston Villa fans might remember from his time there. And yeah, the point is, like, the stats that we see of his players, they don't really deserve to finish in the top 4, really, when you consider kind of like the players they've got at their disposal. They've only scored 51 goals in 27 games. That's the 5th best in the division, and they've conceded 40. That's the 10th. So they've got some like issues running through the sides. It looks like this summer's going to have to be huge for them to figure out how they're kind of going to rejuvenate this Roma team. I don't think even Chris Smalling has played that consistently throughout the season since joining on a permanent deal there. It is looking better for them in Europe, it must be said. They take a 3-0 first leg victory over Shakhtar Donetsk into the game. Well, obviously, by the time this all comes out, the result will be confirmed, but it does look good for them in Europe there. So maybe that could be their best opportunity to get into the Champions League next year if the top 4 race does drop off. But even then, there's some good teams in the Europa Leagues, so it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, Roma, like I said, just every time you think they're on the verge of doing something this season, they just seem to kind of fall off and blip. It's a difficult side, aged team. I'll be interested to see how they do against Napoli, who certainly look like they're on the ascendancy at the moment.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird for Roma and Fonseca in particular, because last year as well they weren't that solid defensively as well. They conceded 51 goals last year too. That was their most since 2012-13 when they finished 7th in 2012-13. So he maybe needs to have a look at the balance of his side. I know they've got Brian Cristante in the middle of the park and Jordan Veretout and Lorenzo Pellegrini, 3 great players, but maybe give more minutes to Diawara as well. Now he is properly registered for their squad as well. So yeah, it's a weird one for Roma. But their opponents, Napoli, McCubs, have had an equally strange year, and Gattuso's job, is it under threat or is he officially gone? I can't actually quite remember.
He's not officially gone.
But is he going in the end of the year is what I mean?
Yeah, so he's obviously he was kind of on the verge of being sacked, wasn't he, earlier in the year. So yeah, they had a pretty terrible run of form around the new year. They only they lost 6 of their 12 games between the 16th of December and the 21st of February. That saw them drop from 3rd to 7th. They were really kind of in the title mix, weren't they, before Christmas? And that really, that kind of run of form really dropped off. It coincided with big doubts over Gattuso's future. And kind of reports of De Laurentiis kind of wanting to get him out the door. Reports that De Laurentiis had offered a job to the former manager Maurizio Sarri as well. But yeah, like you alluded to, Dukes, I think Gattuso, generally speaking, I think it is considered that he probably will leave the club when his contract expires at the end of the season. But since then, since that kind of terrible run of form, they've responded pretty well. I think obviously Gattuso, man of great pride, no matter if his job is up at the end of the season, I think he wants to leave a decent legacy, and if he can get them into the Champions League, I think that will be a really a job well done. And I think generally, I think that this job has really revitalised his managerial career in many ways. But yeah, they've won 3 and drawn 1 of their last 4 games. They've scored 9 and conceded 4. This form's taken them back to 5th. They're only 2 points behind Atalanta now, who have played a game more, and 5 behind Juventus. So very, very much still in with a shout for Europe. And it's just as well because obviously they crashed out of the Europa League to Granada. They went out of the Coppa Italia as well to Atalanta, didn't they? So yeah, they've really got this to focus on now. And, there are plenty of reasons to be cheerful, I think, for Napoli fans. Okay, you're not maybe in as good a position as you were in November, but I don't think anyone was really expecting Napoli to challenge for the title at the start of the season. Obviously, a player like Victor Osimhen, who was the marquee signing last summer, has spent a lot of time out injured. He's made a pretty decent comeback in the last 2 games. So yeah, and I feel like this season we've seen Napoli, although they haven't been the most consistent, when they have been on song, they've really torn apart teams and put 5-6 past opposition, which I don't think we've really seen since the Sarri days. And yeah, only Inter and Atalanta have scored more than their 56 league goals. Only Juve and Inter have actually conceded fewer than their 26. So pretty solid at both ends. Although I feel like in the last few games there have been a few errors at the back with playing out from the back and whatnot. So I think that's an area of their game that they need to work on a little bit. Obviously integrating kind of new centre backs and whatnot alongside Koulibaly. So I'm sure that's something that they will work out in the long run. But yeah, there's nothing overly worrying about the way that they play. They average the most shots in the league with 16.8, the most shots on target a game with 6. They rank 4th for shots conceded per game on 10.8. For context, Man City average 15.5 shots, 5.9 shots on target and 7 against per game. So not to draw too stark a comparison, obviously playing in very different leagues. But yeah, those kind of numbers were the kind of numbers that we weren't too far off what we were seeing in the Sarri days when they were kind of heralded as the most entertaining side in Europe. And their goals have come from a number of different sources around the side as well, which has been good to see. I think Lorenzo Insigne has been very much back to his best this season, hasn't he? 17 league goal contributions. Zielinski second with 12 goal contributions. Then Lozano, Politano and Mertens all on 11. But I want to shout out Peter Zielinski because I think he's been one of their best players recently. Arguably their biggest goal threat in their win against Milan. And he's playing in a much more advanced role this season with obviously Bakayoko and Ruiz, or Ruiz and Dem behind him. And he's been fantastic. 1.2 tackles and interceptions he's still making a game. He's averaging over 2 shots. He's creating nearly 2 key passes, nearly 2 chances, completing nearly 3 dribbles, 6 goals and 6 assists, and he's racking up 0.32 expected goals and assists per 90, which is really excellent stuff for a player who was playing kind of in a deeper position before, was playing kind of on the left and right a little bit, wasn't he? So it's really good to see him kind of come into his own in that kind of number 10 role. Giovanni D Lorenzo continues to be excellent as well at right back. 3.3 tackles and interceptions a game. He leads his side for passes into the final third. His delivery into the box, I think, is quite underrated, to be honest. Second for passes into the penalty area. So he's had another excellent campaign for the partner pay. But this is the start of a difficult month for them. I think this is a real must-win game. After this, they play Crotone, then Juve, Sampdoria, and Inter, all in the next month. So some winnable games in there, but obviously in Juve and Inter, who, especially with Inter, wanting to kind of put further daylight between them and the rest of the chasing pack. This is a real season-defining month for them.
Absolutely massive, and it feels like Serie A is almost wrapped up, I'd say, if a couple more results go Inter's way. So the race for top 4 is going to be absolutely fascinating, which makes this game so exciting. And Napoli, in terms of their recent results, have had the better of this fixture recently. They've won their last 2 meetings, scoring 6 and conceding 1 in that time. They've actually only lost 2 of their last 8 meetings in all competitions, winning 5 of them. And Roma have some serious injuries as well. So obviously Zaniolo's been out long term. Veretout, Mkhitaryan, Juan Jesus and Smaldini could all miss out as well. So that's a little concerning for Roma. Whereas Napoli, it's Battaglia and Gulam, who's been out long term, who continue their spell on the sidelines. So not as bigger losses in that Napoli squad, which makes me feel like Napoli are going to win this game. But I want a score prediction. Henry, are you in agreement with me?
Yeah, I mean, probably. It depends. Just looking at the Roma squads, like Ibanez has been really impressive, young centre-back. I should say, like, a lot of their age problems are more in the attack. And obviously, like you said, Zaniolo, I mean, that is probably the most unfortunate, sequence of injuries, isn't it? Like, back-to-back cruciate ligaments. So when they get him back, that'll be exciting. But for this game, I'm going to go for Napoli. I just think they've got more mavericks and goal scorers in that side. So I'm going to give it a 2-0 victory to them.
Fair enough. McCubs, are you in agreement?
Yeah, I'll say 3-0 Napoli.
Oh, comprehensive. Yeah. Comprehensive. The mention of Roger Ibanez has just sparked my memory of watching the highlights of their game against Parma at the weekend. And Ibanez gave away a penalty and then did that classic Italian hand manoeuvre and just popped it around for quite a while.
Was not having it, was it?
It was brilliant. He wasn't happy one bit. So I am going to go for that reason and that alone. I'm going to go Ibanez is going to get a goal in this.
Oh, go on.
And then he's going to do that as his celebration. And I'm going to go 2-1 to Napoli, but Ibanez gets a goal. Guys, get your score predictions in the comments down below. And let's move on to our quickfire question. Our quickfire question this week comes in from @Rashford, and it is La Liga now the worst of the top leagues? Obviously not a great week for La Liga leaders Atletico Madrid, who went out at the hands of Chelsea. I mean, Henry, what's your opinion on this? Is La Liga in a bit of a decline, or are the English teams just playing very well, or did Chelsea just play very well? Take it away.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of tend to agree. I always thought that if every side in La Liga played every side in the Premier League, irrelevant of the year, that the Premier League on balance would probably win most of those games because the bottom half is just a bit stronger. But if you look at the worst of teams this year, Huesca, I mean, Eibar, they've always been really good, but they're now dropping out. Alaves as well. It's not great. I still think it's between them and Liga. I still think the lower end of Liga is pretty disappointing. I know I've been banging the drum for them this recently, but kind of the bottom half is worse. But I'd say the only thing is that the top half of the other leagues is stronger than La Liga. But I'd say on balance, La Liga is still slightly better than Liga in general quality across the league. But yeah, it is a tricky one. That's kind of where I know it's not a great answer, but the Premier League and the Bundesliga, I'd say, are the most depth fulfilled, if that makes sense, in terms of talent top to bottom. But yeah, on balance, I'd say La Liga is slightly better than Liga, but the top end of La Liga is more interesting.
Fair enough. I'd probably go, I think the Premier League's the strongest at the moment, and then I'd say La Liga Serie A probably has 6 or 7 pretty good sides, and that makes it very competitive. La Liga's in a bit of a downturn, and I think the Bundesliga has sort of mainly one very, very good side, and obviously RB Leipzig and Dortmund and Eintracht Frankfurt this year have been pretty good as well. Obviously Dortmund have gone through a dodgy patch or two. I mean, McCubs, in terms of La Liga, do you think that Real Madrid and Barcelona's finances mean that this might be a bit of a consistent state of affairs for the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think it could be. We actually did an EFD Explained on it a couple of months ago about is why La Liga is in decline. And obviously that has played a massive factor, especially in terms of Barcelona. I think, we spoke about that Neymar transfer earlier, and it kind of ruined them in terms of the way they reinvested that money. They could have reinvested that money in whatever way they saw fit, and they chose to go down a route which is ultimately costed them on the field and off it. And it could be a very different story now if there was a different administration in place and they decided to go down the kind of investing in youth kind of route and picking out future stars, or even just reinvesting it all in Mbappe. I think that's had quite a profound effect on kind of La Liga's standing in Europe. And of course, Real Madrid have had their own issues and are going through their own transitional period. But equally, I think there is scope for La Liga becoming better again and coming back stronger, mainly because the benefits of the kind of the renewed TV deal, which I think was struck in 2016, whereby basically there's a more even split of money coming out of TV revenue across La Liga now, whereas before clubs had to negotiate their own TV deals, which basically meant that Barcelona and Real Madrid, as the two most overwhelmingly supported clubs in the country, took the vast majority of the money. Now there is a bit more of an even split, so hopefully what we'll see in the next few years is the kind of the middling clubs and even the lower table clubs increase their spending power, and hopefully begin to catch up in a similar way to what we've seen in the Premier League in the last 15 years, at least in terms of spending power. Hopefully that will happen. But right now I think there's no getting past it. I think Real Madrid and Barcelona really spearheaded what was kind of the best league in Europe in the kind of mid 2010s, which was based largely on European performance, I guess. But they were the two outstanding teams in Europe, and their decline has big ramifications for the rest of the league in that sense. But I still think, I still feel like La Liga is a pretty good quality league. I still think it's comfortably better than Liga, and I'd still argue that perhaps it's even better than Serie A in some respects. So I think there's maybe a little bit of panic over this season. I think, Dougie, you were talking about it on UCL Review as well. Like they had the biggest drop off of any league in Europe's top 5 in terms of spending last year. So in some ways, it's no surprise that there's been a drop off in performance. But having been comfortably the second biggest spending league in Europe, I think they were the 4th last summer or 3rd. I'm not sure, but either way, there was a huge drop off in terms of percentage of money spent. So in many ways, it's understandable. But I think I think to say that they're the worst of the top leagues, I think is a bit far fetched.
Yeah, I just think you can't really judge whole leagues on two-legged affairs, on two-legged ties, because it's just, someone has to win. And yes, all the Spanish teams have underperformed this year, but they've still got Real Madrid, who beat an Atalanta side that made it to the quarterfinals last year and were very close to beating PSG last year as well. So and also in 2019, it was like, we had both clubs in the Europa League, we being the English Premier League, and both clubs in the Champions League. But last year, English clubs massively underperformed in the Champions League and Europa League, and we suddenly didn't have, everyone saying, the Premier League's useless. So people just need to relax and stop judging leagues so quickly.
Also,
that's my 2p.
I know, Atleti and Barca went out pretty convincingly in the last 16, but all 4 Spanish clubs did make it into the last 16, right? So
there we have it.
So I think, which is something that the Premier League didn't do, for example. So I think, it's a little bit reactionary. I think all this.
Absolutely. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, you Premier League fans. Anyway, that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed our discussion of our £100 million signings, our look ahead to Rome at Napoli, and a discussion about the state of La Liga right now. McCubs, if they've enjoyed watching this, what should they go and watch now?
They should go and watch EFD Explains. I've already said, but yeah, go and check out that series. Like on UCR Review, I can't think of many aside from the West Africa one, but go and check that out if you haven't already, and go and check out our other ones.
Nice. Anything from you, Henry?
McCubs, I saw every video I've seen you push the West Africa video, so keep doing that. So
I know I have, yeah. That's the reason why it's doing quite well views-wise.
No, there's
just me.
The one which isn't doing quite as well view-wise, but I think I really enjoyed writings about PSG losing their grip in Liga. Go check out that if you have already. It's actually a really interesting story, and look at kind of like the financial situation for that division right there. And also we've got 9 weirdest title races of all time, which just came out. Not 10, 9, and that's got off to a flyer. So go check that out. There's some really interesting stories in there too.
Perfect. Yeah, guys, we're just keeping you on your toes. We're shoving a 9 in there. It's 10s for years. Now occasional 9s, 8s, 7s. Who knows what we'll do next. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time. Bye.